President Trump and the First Lady hosted a trick-or-treat event at what's left of the White House. And this is one of my favorite things that the president does because it's so clear he never trick-or-treated once in his life. Like, in his first term, here's how he gave candy to a kid dressed as a minion.
Donald Trump is losing his mind right now. And Colin Jost and the SNL team are the ones making him do it. Because here's the thing about SNL. When the writers sit down every week and decide what they're going to say, they're not just trying to be funny. They're pulling receipts. They're taking actual things that actually happened, things that real people said and did in real life, and holding them up under a spotlight so bright that even people who weren't paying attention suddenly can't look away. And that is exactly what's been happening all season.
My favorite part, though, was when Trump and Melania made a grand entrance to this song. Michael Jackson's Thriller. Just the perfect soundtrack to lure kids to a famous...
But before we get deep into it, let me just say this. This isn't just some sketch comedy beef. This is a sitting president of the United States. A man with nuclear codes. A man with the entire federal government at his disposal. Spending his night's rage posting on True Social because a show that airs on Saturday night keeps telling the truth about him every single week. And the more he attacks them, the bigger they get. You truly cannot make this up.
It's the first annual Trumps, the awards honoring the best in being or succumbing to President Trump. And now, your host, President Donald J. Trump.
Thank you so much. It truly is an honor to be here hosting the Trump.
So let's go back to January 24th, 2026, because that cold open was something different, something special. The SNL writing room had been watching Trump's behavior, the obsession with awards, the constant need for validation, the desperation for applause from literally anyone. And they said, you know what? Let's just give him what he wants. And they built an entire bit around Trump hosting his own award show, his own personal Oscars just for himself.
The nominees for Best Picture of Me are
Staring into the distance while man has medical emergency next to him. Molesting flag. Redacted Epstein file. And receiving another fake award that he made FIFA in.
The first category, Best Picture of Me. The winner, a photo of Trump clutching the FIFA Peace Prize, which the cast wasted no time reminding everyone was an award that Trump essentially pressured FIFA into creating just so he could receive it. His very own participation trophy from an international sports organization. And the audience, they lost it. They absolutely lost it. But here's what makes that joke land so differently than just a regular SNL gag. It's not exaggerated. It's not absurd fiction. It actually happened. The FIFA thing actually happened, and that's what SNL has been doing all season. They're not really writing comedy. They're just reading the news back to you with a better delivery. James Austin Johnson's Trump impression has gotten so sharp, so lived in, so precise in its replication of the real man's patterns and verbal tics that when you watch Johnson up at that podium, you genuinely have a moment where your brain goes, wait, is that real footage? And then you remember it's SNL. And then you laugh, and then you get a little bit scared because the impression is barely an exaggeration. And that means the original is already that unhinged.
Argentine President Javier Milei, seen here asking if he makes you horny, baby. Met with President Trump at the White House this week, where Trump announced he's sending $40 billion to Argentina. Because if history is any guide, a lot of Trump officials will end up fleeing to Argentina.
Argentine President Javier Milei, seen here asking if he makes you horny, baby, met with President Trump at the White House this week, where Trump announced he's sending $40 billion to Argentina. Because if history is any guide, a lot of Trump officials will end up fleeing to Argentina.
Michael Jackson's Thriller. Just the perfect soundtrack to lure kids to a famous mansion.
Now, like I said, Colin Jost is a different kind of dangerous because the cold opens are theatrical and big and ensemble-driven. But Jost operates on a different frequency entirely. He sits behind that weekend update desk, fixes his tie, give you the mildest, most harmless expression imaginable, and then absolutely destroys everything in the room with 6 words that in October 2025, Trump's administration had just sent over $20 billion to Argentina. And Jost just completely straight-faced looked directly into the camera and said many Trump officials will eventually escape to Argentina. And that's when the whole studio erupted because the reference is clear. He's talking about the Nazi war criminals who fled to Argentina after World War II on a major network on live television in 2025. And the reaction in the room was exactly what you'd expect. One brave soul who clapped immediately, and then everyone else who needed an extra second to process what they just heard. And then the delayed laughter hit like a wave. Jost didn't apologize, didn't walk it back, didn't add a disclaimer. He just moved on to the next joke like he hadn't just dropped a historical grenade on live TV. Because that's the thing about Colin Jost. He trusts you to keep up. He trusts the audience to make the connection. And when they do, it hits so much harder than if he'd spelled it all out.
He's like, hey, Greenland, you look so good. And Greenland's like, haha, thanks. And Trump's like, seriously, I need you. I'd literally give $700 billion to be with you. And Greenland's like, look, not trying to be mean, but I'm not interested. And Trump's like, I'll kill you, you ugly bitch.
But then November happened. Trump and Melania showed up at the White House Halloween party. Big event, lots of press, Michael Jackson's Thriller blasting through the speakers as they made their entrance. Very dramatic, very cinematic, very look at us. And Jost, watching that same footage that everyone else was watching, casually observed, what a fitting soundtrack to attract children to a well-known mansion. Now, the audience laughed first. They laugh the way you laugh when something is funny. And then the connection hit, and the laughs turned into groans, real, audible, visceral groans from people who came to laugh and got something more complicated instead. And Joe sat there in the groans. He didn't flinch. He didn't apologize. He just let the discomfort exist in the room and then kept moving. That's what separates Jost from a lot of other political comedians. He doesn't do a lot of hand-holding. He doesn't say, and here's why that's funny. He just says the thing and trusts that you're smart enough to understand why it matters. And when the audience groans, when they feel the weight of the implication, that's not failure. That's the joke working exactly as intended.
Listen up, in case your ears are too fat to hear the news. We went into Venezuela and, como se dice, we teabagged their country? They're lucky at Manscaped. We went in, straight up stole their president, yoink!
All right, let's talk about the Greenland situation because if SNL has an all-time favorite recurring joke this season, it might be this one. And it is a gift that keeps on giving because the material keeps refreshing itself every single week. Trump will not stop talking about Greenland. The man is obsessed. He says he wants it. He says America is going to get it. He talks about it the way a teenager talks about a crush they've never even met. And Greenland, the actual country with actual people, keeps saying very politely, very firmly, we do not want to be acquired. Thank you and goodbye. And Trump just doesn't hear it. Doesn't register. Just keeps posting, keeps talking, keeps insisting. SNL mocked this by comparing him to a psycho stalker. And once they said it, you could never unsee it. The image is perfect because a stalker doesn't care about your no. A stalker doesn't hear, we don't want this. A stalker just keeps showing up, and the joke doesn't need a punchline because the behavior is the punchline. Interview number 9. The January 18th episode needs its own paragraph because the writing team absolutely cooked that week. We had Trump's Nobel Prize envy, the Venezuela situation, Kristi Noem's response, and everything tied together with Johnson's Trump at the podium at one point. He casually says, the midterms are canceled. Just drops it there like it's nothing. And the audience laughs, but then pauses like, wait, should I be laughing? That's the genius of SNL this season. They're making comedy and discomfort exist at the same time in the same joke.
All over the world. We dunked on Venezuela. Next, we're gonna sack tap Iran. I'm gonna put the Ayatollah in the cup chair. I'm gonna tell him, if I Ayatollah you once, Ayatollah you 1,000 times. You don't dare kill your protesters. That's our thing.
Now, we have to talk about the CNN situation because the hypocrisy here is almost performance art. Trump calls CNN fake news constantly. It's his brand. But the moment CNN says something positive about him, suddenly it's credible again. You cannot call a source completely untrustworthy and then use it to validate your achievements in the same breath. It simply doesn't work. Interview number 11. SNL tracked this perfectly. The January 24th cold open had Mike Myers playing Elon Musk, and the joke was simple but devastating point one line explained everything about how billionaires insert themselves into politics and still become the punchline. Even the White House responded to SNL at one point, which ironically proved the comedians right. You don't respond to something unless it gets to you.
Oh, tariffs on human, legalize comedy, come on, legalize it, let's go. Unfortunately, it wasn't all laughs this year. Now, not all laughs. There are a few things we had to say goodbye to because we destroyed them.
And finally, the joke that pulled the entire season together. The Epstein joke.it was so sharp, so direct, that the audience gasped on live television. Not just laughed, gasped. And that's what Trump cannot stand. Not just the jokes, but how far they spread. Every clip goes viral, reaches millions, and keeps the narrative alive that he tried to shut SNL down. Went after NBC, pushed hard, but the show is still there. Still airing. Still growing. Still delivering.
House Democrats released an email written by Jeffrey Epstein in which he claims that Donald Trump, quote, knew about the girls. It's bombshell news that legal experts are calling duh.